Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Kami ang Group 2. Ang topic na ire-report namin sa inyo ngayon ay tungkol sa China. Ano, tara?
Ancient Chinese. China is one of the world's oldest continuous civilization, and its history of science and technology span thousands of years. Ancient Chinese thinkers developed a unique blend of practical knowledge and philosophical insight, which led to a remarkable innovation that influenced not only China, but the entire world. Chinese science and technology were often closely linked to agricultural, medicine, astronomy, and statecraft, aiming to improve daily life and maintain harmony with nature. And the example of that is the Great Wall of China, which is an ancient China had some amazing engineers and inventors. That magnificent underground tombs for its emperors and the longest lasting civilization in history, and they built a great wall.
Astronomy. Astronomy started from Shang Dynasty. The detailed record of astronomical observation began during the War States period and flourished from the Han period onward. Pangunahing layunin ng mga astronomo ng China ay itala ang oras, ipahayag ang unang araw ng bawat buwan at hulaan ng mga lunar eclipse. Kung mali sila sa kanilang mga hula, madalas silang pinugutan ng ulo. Naniniwala ang mga astronomo ng Chino na ang mga pangyayaring pangkalawakan ay may kaugnayan sa mga pangyayaring panglupa, lalo na ang kapalaran ng emperador at ng estado. Dahil dito, sila ay may tungkuling bantayan ang kalangitan para sa mga kometa, eclipse, supernova at ilaw ng mga planeta na nakikita bilang mga tanda. This made astronomy both a scientific and political discipline. Nag-imbento sila ng mga instrumento tulad ng armillary spear, ginomo, at water clock upang sukatin ng oras at mga anggulong pangkalawakan. A Saiyan astronomer, Shang Sheng, also created a seismograph to detect earthquake and contribute to celestial global design. Armillary spear. Ang armillary spear ay isang traditional na instrumento ng astronomiyang Chino. Ginagamit ito upang obserbahan ang celestial body sa isang equatorial coordinate system. Pinapakita dito ang galaw ng star, sun, moon, at mga planeta sa kalawakan, and it serves both as a teaching tools and scientific device. It consists of a set of rings that represent important celestial circles, such as the celestial equator, ecliptic, meridian, and horizon. It shows how stars and planets move relative to Earth position. Ginagamit ito ng mga astronomo upang matukoy ang right ascension at declination, tulad ng mga longitude at longitude sa kalangitan. Astronomers use it to determine the right ascension and declination of a star and planet, help improve the accuracy of the Chinese calendar in solar terms, which were vital for agriculture and rituals. Ginomo. Ginomo is measure the position of the sun and determine time and seasons. Ito ay isang vertical stick o haligi na nagtatapon ng anino ng isang flat surface. Kagaya na nakikita nyo sa larawan, ito ay ginomo. Ang horizontal plate is lying along the south-north direction is named Gyu. Ang vertical pole standing straight to the south of Go is known as Pyo. The length of the shadow would be the longest on winter solstice and the shortest on summer solstice. Determining the solstice at ang natitira ng 24 solar terms ng Chino from the length of its changing shadow. According to the various period of the shadow length, the number of days in the tropical years was also obtained 365 and 25 days. Water clock. Ito ay binuon ng Chino sa mataas na advanced water clock noong panahon ng Han Dynasty. One famous example is the water-driven astronomical clock water built by Su Song in the 11th century during the Song Dynasty. His clock including gears, an escapement mechanism, and even an armillary sphere, an early form on chemical clockwork. Water clock ay isang mahalagang hakbang sa pagbuo ng tumpak na pagsukat ng oras. They represent human ingenuity in using natural elements to create tools for organizing daily life, conducting science, and observing the universe.
The Chinese calendar was invented by Emperor Wang Di around 2637 BCE. It is considered a lunisolar calendar, which means it is based on both the phases of the moon and the position of the sun. In modern times, China mainly uses the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar most countries use today for everyday activities such as business and government. However, the traditional Chinese calendar is widely used for cultural and traditional purposes, especially for determining the dates of important festivals like Chinese New Year. One of the main features of the Chinese calendar is its lunar months. Each month begins with the new moon and lasts around 29.5 days. Because of this, the months usually alternate between 29 and 30 days. A normal lunar year has 12 months, which totals about 354 days. This is about 11 days shorter than a solar year, which has about 365 days. To solve this difference, the Chinese calendar uses something called a leap month. Every 2 to 3 years, an extra month is added to the calendar. These adjustments helps keep the calendar aligned with the seasons, which was especially important in ancient China for agriculture and farming activities. Another important feature of Chinese calendar is the 24 solar terms. This divide the year into 24 season points based on sun's position in the sky. Examples include the beginning of spring, summer solstice, autumn equinox, and winter solstice. Farmers use these solar terms as a guide to know when to plant crops, harvest, and prepare for seasonal changes. In Chinese culture, it is believed the animal of the year influences the personality and destiny of people born during that year. For example, people born in the year of the rat are often described as clever and resourceful, while people born in the year of the horse are believed to be energetic, hardworking, and strong. Each zodiac animal is also associated with different elements of nature, including directions, seasons, and even times of the day. For instance, the rat corresponds to midnight to 2 a.m., the north direction, and the winter season, while the horse corresponds to noon to 2 p.m., the south direction, and the summer season. Aside from the 12-year zodiac cycle, the Chinese calendar also uses a more advanced system called the heavenly stems and the earthly branches. This system is used to measure and record time in a more detailed way. The heavenly stems are a group of 10 symbols that are connected to the 5 elements of nature. which are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Each element has two forms called yin and yang, which makes a total of 10 heavenly stems. On the other hand, the earthly branches are the 12 symbols that corresponds to the 12 Chinese zodiac animals, such as the rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, and pig. These two systems are paired together in order to form 60-year cycle, which is called the sexagenary cycle. After 60 years, the cycle starts again from the beginning. In ancient China, this system was used to name years, track time, and record historical events. It was also used in Chinese astrology and traditional beliefs to understand a person's destiny and fortune. The Chinese zodiac system is not only about timekeeping, it also plays an important role in many aspects of daily life and culture. For example, it is used in horoscopes to predict luck, health, career success, and relationships. It is also used in matchmaking where people compare zodiac signs to determine marriage compatibility. Some zodiac years are also considered more auspicious or lucky than others. For example, the Year of the Dragon is seen as very lucky and powerful, and many families hope to have children during that year. On the other hand, some people believe certain years such as Year of the Tiger may bring more challenges. Historically, the Chinese calendar was very important in organizing farming activities, religious rituals, imperial ceremonies, and daily life. Today, it continues to be used mainly for traditional festivals such as Chinese New Year, the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the Qingming Festival, which is also known as Tomb Sweeping Day. In conclusion, the Chinese calendar is more than just a way of tracking time. It is a unique combination of astronomy, culture, philosophy, and tradition. It reflects how ancient Chinese people closely observed nature, the moon, and the sun, to understand the rhythm of life. Even today, this ancient system remains an important part of Chinese culture and identity, celebrated by millions of people around the world.
Let us proceed naman sa number system. Ang Chinese number system ay isang ancient at logical counting system na meron dati sa China for thousands of years. Ito ay decimal-based, meaning yung structure niya is number around the number 10, similar dun sa ating modern numerical system ngayon. May dalawang ginamit na number system sa China before. Una doon ay ang rod numerals at ang isa na may abacus or swanpan. Sa rod numerals, yung counting board consisted of a checkerboard with rows and columns, at yung mga numero ay nire-represent by little rods made with bamboo or ivory. Siya is parang mga sticks na gawa lang sa bamboo or ivory, alin man dun sa dalawa. Yung mga number na yun is placed sila sa rightmost column, the tens in the column to the left, yung hundreds naman in the next column to the left, hanggang sa mag-thousands, columns to the left pa ng hundreds, and so on. Ang numbers niya is hanggang 9. Dito, meron tayong positive at may negative. Kumbaga, baka may given na information, na numerical information na negative dapat yung sagot. Ang positive numbers ay nire-represent ng mga red rods, Tapos, ang mga negative naman ay black rods. Doon nadidistinguish kung alin ba yung positive at negative dun sa dalawa. Tapos, meron din itong horizontal at vertical. Dito, isa sa mga rules dito, una mong isusulat is yung pinakahuling number dun sa pinakang right, sa ones. Kasi siya is naka-column by ones, tens, hundred, and thousands. unang position na ilalagay mo ay vertical. Kasunod horizontal, kasunod vertical uli, kasunod horizontal. At dito, ang 0 ay hindi isinusulat. Nililive lang siya na blank. Ito ang tinutukoy ko. Ang sabi, meron tayong vertical at horizontal, may positive at negative. Wala akong red ballpen, so negative ito. Pero, imagine nyo na lang muna na kulay pula siya. Red, positive, black, negative. At meron tayong vertical at horizontal. Ang sabi, ang 0 ay leave as blank. Kapag tayo magsusulat, dito muna tayo magsisimula sa ones. Kasunod sa rightmost corner. Sa leftmost corner, nakatabi nito ay ang tens. At dito naman ang hundreds. Kaya tatlo yan. Pero kapag thousands, 4. Kapag 10,000s, 5. Depende. Isa-isang column lang. Ang sabi, unang lagay mo sa rightmost corner ay vertical. So, 9. Vertical. 8. Horizontal na. Kasi, alternating nga sila. Ang kasunod naman ay 2. Vertical na uli siya. Okay? Next is 5,031. 1. Vertical. 3. Horizontal. Next is 0. Leave as blank. Pero, isipin nyo na naka-vertical siya kasi nakampan yung column. At ang kasunod naman, since vertical ito, edi horizontal na. 5 horizontal. Ito namang abacus, or mas kilala sa China na Swanpan. In about the 14th century AD, the abacus came into use sa China. It was similar counting board, except hindi na siya gumagamit ng rods to represent numbers. Instead, beads na. Halos lahat naman siguro familiar sa abacus, hindi lang alam kung paano gamitin. Kung makikita nyo dun sa picture, ganyan siya gamitin. I mean, ganyan yung itsura niya. Familiar naman kayo lahat sa itsura niya, hindi ba? Para mas maintindihan na lang natin, mag-e-example ako kung paano mag-counting sa abacus. Take note lang na yung part of the wire above the bar is known traditionally as heaven, but also referred as upper deck. Yun namang earth kung tawagin is the lower deck. Yung each wire in the abacus frame has 7 beads, with 2 in the upper deck and 5 in the lower deck. Mapapansin nyo dito, sa picture na nakalagay, yung beads sa taas is 2, at yung beads naman dito sa baba ay 5. At meron siyang 13 na wires to represent very large number. 13 na, kumbaga, linya.
Hi everyone, my name is Adam.
My name is Daria. Welcome to an amazing adventure with Abacus Center.
Today we will get acquainted with an abacus and learn how to use it.
An abacus is a tool that helps us add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Also, it helps develop concentration, attention, and many other useful skills.
Before studying arithmetic operations, we will get acquainted with the numbers on the abacus.
There is a beam on the abacus which helps us determine what number is registered.
If there is no bead touching the beam, then the number on the abacus is 0.
Let's go to the first rod at the right-hand side, which is responsible for the units.
The value of each lower bead is 1. So, if we move one lower bead to the beam, then we will have the number 1. If there are 2 beads touching the beam, then 2. 3 beads, 3. 4 beads, 4.
Now, how to make the number 5? We don't have the lower beads anymore.
For this we have an upper bead, the value of which is 5. Therefore, if we move the upper bead to the beam, then we will have the number 5 on the abacus.
To make the number 6, you need to move the upper and 1 lower bead, and to make the number 7, the upper and 2 lower.
We make the number 8 on the abacus using the 3 lower beads and the upper bead. And to make the number 9, you need to use all the beads on the first rod.
So, now we know how to make numbers on the abacus.
And now, to go to the next stage, you need to answer the questions and complete some tasks.
So, dako naman tayo sa medicine, which is ancient Chinese medicine, also known as the traditional Chinese medicine. So, ang TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, ay na-develop over 1,000 years ago, and up until now, pinapractice pa rin siya and ginagamit pa rin siya. So, what makes it distinct sa ibang type of medicine is that ang TCM ay hindi lang basta tumitingin sa sakit, but also to the person. Tinitingnan nila ito as both, emphasizing balance and harmony in their body and environment. So, punta naman tayo sa one of the key principles of TCM, ang yin and yang. So, ang yin and yang ay opposite but complementary forces na pwede mo makita o matagpuan sa nature and in human body. So, ang yin represents coolness, darkness, rest, and internal organs, while ang yang naman represents warmth, light, activity, and external function. So, bale, ang gustong i-emphasize ng yin and yang is that kailangan mag-balance siya kasi nga na-represent nito ang two opposing forces, which either yin and yang. So, kapag sumobrang isang force, maaaring mag-cause siya ng sakit in the case of yin and yang sa TCM na makaka-apekto sa body ng isang tao. So, punta naman tayo sa example ng yin and yang. So, too much yang may cause fever, inflammation, restlessness, or dryness. Samantala sa yin naman, it may lead to coldness, fatigue, and sluggishness. So, ang treatment sa yin and yang is to reduce yung excess forces. It's in either yin and yang kasi kailangan ma-restore yung balance nila. Kasi yung relationship ng yin and yang is dynamic lang. So, kumbaga bawal yung sumobra ang isa sa kanila. Kasi nga, it might lead to diseases or yung mga sakit sa katawan. Next is ang qi, which is the vital life energy that flows throughout the body. So, ito ay nagmo-move from our body through channels known as the meridians. Ito yung nako-connect sa ating organs and body system. So, qi nourishes the organs, supports mental and physical activity, and protects body from illness. So, meron tayo iba't ibang uri or type ng qi. Number 1 is the yuan qi, or original qi inherited at birth. Next is zong qi, gathered qi from food and air. Last is the wei qi, or defensive qi, protects against diseases. So, kumbaga pag na-block or weak or imbalance ang ating qi, nagli-lead siya sa illness or sa mga diseases. A way to treat this is the use of acupuncture, herbal medicine, and qigong para bumalik ulit sa normal functioning ang ating qi o yung ating vital life energy. Next is the 5 elements. The 5 elements truly views the world and the body as composed of the 5 interconnected elements: wood or liver, fire or heart, earth, spleen, metal, lungs, water, kidneys. Each element corresponds to organs, emotion, colors, seasons, and taste. Relationships: the elements support or control each other. For example, Wood feeds fire, supportive, but wood controls earth, regulatory. Imbalances between elements can affect related organs and emotional state. For example, wood feeds fire. Diba kasi nga, nasusunog ang wood with the use of fire. Tapos, fire makes the earth kasi yung mga ashes nourishes the ground and earth. Earth makes metal like yung mga minerals. Metal makes the water. Water helps the wood grow. Kasi when you plant, parang kailangan mo siyang diligan in order for it to grow. Ngayon, in the 5 elements, it says na kailangan balance siya. Kasi pag hindi siya balance or may imbalances, it may lead to illness or mga diseases. It can affect organs. Diba? So, ayan siya. In conclusion, pag nagkakaroon tayo ng imbalances within the 5 elements, maaari itong mag-lead or mag-cause ng sakit. So, para iwasan siya, kailangang regulated siya palagi na hindi lalabang o sosobra ang isang element. This system helps TCM practitioner diagnose diseases by observing symptoms in relation to the balance or disharmony among elements.
Zhangpu theory, it divides the organ into Zhang, solid organs like heart and liver, and Fu, hollow organs like stomach and bladder. Each organ governs a physical process and emotional state. For example, the liver is linked to anger, while the heart is linked to joy. By understanding how this organ system and emotion are interconnected, practitioner can find the root cause of the disease. Herbal medicine, this treatment uses natural substance, including roots, leaves, flowers, seeds, and minerals. Unlike Western medicine that focus on single active ingredients, traditional Chinese medicine typically combines several herbs into tailored formulas. These specific combinations are designed to correct internal imbalance unique to each individual. Acupuncture is a key principle of traditional Chinese medicine. The technique involves inserting very fine needles into specific acupoints on the body. These points sit along pathways called meridians, where our vital energy or QI flows. Because when QI is blocked, it causes pain or illness. Acupuncture stimulates this point to restore flow, reduce pain, and promote healing.
Mag-proceed naman tayo sa cupping therapy. Cupping therapy is part pa rin siya ng Chinese medicine. Mas kilala siya sa atin dito sa Pilipinas bilang ventosa. Ginagamitan siya ng facing glass, bamboo or plastic cups para matanggal yung lamig sa katawan para rin mapabuti yung blood circulation natin. So, after ng procedure ng pagka-cupping therapy is meron na iiwang bruises or pasa sa atin yung mga bilog-bilog sa likod natin. Hindi siya pasa, pero sign siya na na-improve na yung blood circulation natin sa katawan at saka yung toxin. Usually, ang cupping therapy is ina-offer sa mga spa at ng mga licensed therapist. Next naman is Tuina. Tuina is a form of therapeutic massage. Dito is gumagamit siya ng rhythmic hand techniques gaya ng kneading, pressing, at ng stretching para i-stimulate dito yung ating acupuncture points and meridians. Nakakatulong to para ma-move natin yung chi at blood. Nire-relax din dito yung ating muscles, binabawasan ng ating inflammation, at para maitama ang mga misalignments sa katawan. Tuina rin ang ginagamit para sa musculoskeletal issues gaya ng joint pain, sports injuries, and stiffness. Ginagamit din siya para sa mga internal conditions gaya ng digestive orders or ng insomnia. So, gaya lang din ng cupping therapy is ang ino-offer din siya sa mga spa, which is yun yung pinakang main offer ng spa, which is yung massage at ng mga licensed massage therapist. Last naman is Qigong. Qigong and Tai Chi are mind-body practices that combine slow-flowing movements, breathing techniques, and meditation. So, dito sa Tai Chi is mas complex siya kaysa sa Qigong. Kasi yung Tai Chi, yung choreography niya is martial arts sequences. So, kapag nanonood kayo ng mga action movies, siya yung usually ginagamit sa mga action scenes. So, this kind of exercise is designed para i-improve ang ating chi, ang ating posture and flexibility, i-relax ang ating mind, at palakasin ang ating body. Ang regular na pagpapractice ng alinman sa dalawang exercise, which is Qigong or Tai Chi, is pinaniniwalaan na nakakaiwas sa sakit, nakakabawas siya ng stress, at nakaka-boost din siya ng energy. So, this is often recommended sa mga patients na nagre-recover from their illness o kaya naman is para mapabuti yung kanilang overall well-being and mental clarity.
Tajahao. Now let's proceed to the agriculture of ancient Chinese civilization. So agriculture played a vital role in the country's economy, culture, and technological development. So marami ang naiambag ng agriculture sa iba't ibang aspeto ng Chinese civilization. Nandiyan ang ambag nila sa country's economy, sa culture, at sa technological development ng kanilang bansa. So development on agricultural techniques, marami itong naiambag. Nandiyan ang pagpapakain sa growing population, ang suporta sa powerful dynasty, at ang contribute sa stability ng kanilang empire. Hindi naging madali ang success sa Chinese agriculture, pero ginamit nila kung ano ang mga resources na meron sila. That's why the success of Chinese agriculture was deeply connected to the geography, the seasonal rhythm of nature, and the innovation created by the farmer itself and the scholar. Dahil sila mismo yung nakakaranas kung ano nga ba yung hirap na dinadanas sa pagtatanim ng iba't ibang crops. Moving on to the main crop and agricultural regions. So China's agriculture was shaped by its diverse geography. So napaka-diverse ng geography ng China. Kaya yung agriculture nila, inaalay nila sa kanilang geography. In the north, the primary crop was millet, and later, nandiyan ang wheat and barley. While in the south, the warm and the wet climate na ideal sa pagpapatubo ng rice, which became the country's staple food. By the time of Han Dynasty, rice farming had become widespread, and the new irrigation system allowed for cultivation of multiple crop per year. Dahil nga naging staple food ang rice, naging widespread na ang pagtatanim nito. Dahil dito, na-invent ang iba't ibang sistema katulad ng irrigation. Nang sa ganun, makatulong ito sa pagkukultivate ng iba't ibang crops sa iba't ibang taon. Other important crops include soybean, tea, cotton, and hemp. So dito pa mas nakilala ang iba't ibang crop sa China. Next is the tools and technique na ginamit sa agriculture of Chinese civilization. Chinese farmer developed and used many innovative tools to increase productivity. So, di ba, yung mga farmers natin mismo sila yung gumagawa ng paraan para ma-increase yung productivity dahil alam nila yung hirap ng pagtatanim sa panahon na yun. The iron plow invented as early as 4th century BCE, was a major advancement and more effective than wooden tools. So yung iron plow, para siyang pang-araro sa panahon ngayon. Yan, mas pinadali niya yung trabaho kaysa yung mano-mano silang nag-aararo gamit ang wooden tools. They also use animal drone plows. In-upgrade nila ito sa animal drone, seed drills, and wheelbarrows, which made planting and transporting goods more efficient, increased productivity. Another major innovation was the chain pump, a mechanical device used to lift water for irrigation, enabling farmers to bring water to higher land areas. Kagaya ng nakikita nyo sa picture, yung pinagmumula ng tubig ay parang sapa or ilog at ipapadaloy nila ito sa kanilang mga taniman which is more elevated at medyo mahirap lagyan ng tubig or magkaroon ng tubig. Kaya ginawa nila ang water chain pump para magkaroon ng tubig ang kanilang mga taniman. So next is the irrigation and the water management in agriculture. So water control was essential for successful farming in ancient China. So napakahalaga ng tubig noon sa farming. Well, kahit ngayon din naman, napakahalaga ng mga irrigation para sa ating mga farmers. Pero ayun, di nila nakukuha dahil sa mga kurako. Charis. So ayan, going back, napakahalaga nga nun. So, early Chinese engineers built canals, dikes, levees, and reservoirs to manage rivers, especially the unpredictable Yellow River. So, Yellow River is the second longest river. So, itong river na to, yung tubig niya, yung agos niya, may dala itong mga soil. At itong mga soil na to, nagiging cause siya ng pag-shift nung pathway nung river dahil minsan nagbi-build up siya, nagpapatong-patong na yung soil at nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang mga pathway yung river. So, napaka-unpredictable niya. Farmers also constructed intricate paddy fields for rice cultivation using water from nearby stream or artificial irrigation system. Yung mga farmers, gumawa din sila ng paraan. Yung mga fields nila, ginawa nilang mas madaming tubig or mas mamasa-masa para sa cultivation ng rice. Katulad kanina, yung pinaliwanag ko kanina, which is yung chain pump, yan, isa yun sa ginagamit nila para magkaroon ng tubig yung mga fields nila. So these efforts help prevent flood and drought, ensuring more reliable harvest. So itong mga ginawa nilang mga efforts na to, nakatulong to para mas-sustain yung harvest nila kahit na may dumating na droughts, mga floods. So, ayun. So, ancient Chinese agriculture was a complex and organized system supported by technological innovation, natural observation, and government planning. Sana all. Charis. So, ayan. Yung Chinese agriculture, Asian Chinese agriculture, hindi siya simple lang. It was complex pero organized system. Hindi siya basta-basta lang ginawa. It was technological innovation na sinamahan ng natural observation at the government planning. Its development helped sustain one of the world's oldest civilization, which is the Chinese civilization, and set the foundation for China's long history of cultural and economic growth. So dahil sa mga nagawang techniques sa agriculture, na-survive nila ang tagutom at iba't ibang hamon na dumating sa civilization nila at naging foundation ito ng long history ng kanilang cultural and economic growth. Many traditional practices such as rice paddies and crop rotation continue to influence Chinese farming today. So, yung mga naimbento na nila noon pa, hanggang ngayon, nananatili itong buhay sa Chinese farming. Nananatiling ginagamit ito sa kanilang agriculture. Yun lang.
Pag-usapan naman natin ang architecture sa China. Ancient Chinese architecture is a rich and distinctive tradition na kung saan nagre-reflect dito ang values, beliefs, and social structure ng Chinese civilization. It developed over thousands of years ago na naimpluwensyahan ng philosophy, cosmology, climate, and materials available sa iba't ibang dako ng China. Ang ancient Chinese architects is nag-emphasize siya ng harmony sa nature, symmetry, and hierarchy in their designs na kadalasan natin makita sa mga buildings, palaces, temples, homes, or libingan sa China. So, ang next naman natin ay ang key features ng Chinese architectures. So, the first one is wood. Ang traditional Chinese buildings ay kadalasang gawa sa kahoy dahil mas madaling mahanap at makakuha ng kahoy sa bansa. Ang beams, brackets at columns naman ay pinagdurugtong gamit ang advanced joinery techniques kaya hindi na sila gumagamit ng pako para mas tumibay ang structures nito. Ang bubong o kaya roof naman ay kadalasang mabigat at curved at may malalaking overhanging eaves na tumutulong para maproteksyonan ang kahoy na pader laban sa ulan. So dahil dito, mas tumatagal at mas naproproteksyonan ang kanilang mga gusali. Next naman natin ay ang curved roofs and eaves. One of the most recognizable features of Chinese architecture is yung upward curving roof nila. Kadalasang itong may design na animal figures. And mas nakikita natin siya sa mga palasyo, sa mga traditional houses, or sa mga restaurant. Then, ang roofs na to is nagsiserve siya ng practical purposes like draining rainwater o kaya symbolic ones na kung saan nagtatabo ito ng evil spirits. So, ang pangatlong key features ay ang symmetry and Asian layout. Ang Asian Chinese buildings daw is typically laid out along a north to south axis na kung saan may perfect symmetry on either side. Then, nagre-reflect ito sa traditional belief na may balance at harmony daw ito na na-impluwensyahan ni Yin Yang and Feng Shui. So, last naman is ang hierarchy in design. So, dito naman, architecture daw is also expressed as social hierarchy. So, ang structures nito naman is kapag may nakita kayong yellow roof tiles or multiple roof tiles, is naka-reserve daw sila sa mga emperors and royalty. Ang gray tiles naman is naka-reserve sa mga commoners o kaya single-story homes. Then, may mga paniniwala sila na the more powerful a person or institution is, the more elaborate their building is. Important types of structures. The first one is palace. So, ang palace is, serve as the center of Chinese power na kung saan nagsashow siya ng emperor's authority at small importance of individual. So, ang example ng palace is Forbidden City na nakatayo sa Beijing, China. Itinayo siya noong 1406 and 1420 and under siya ng Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty after na ma-move yung capital from Nanjing to Beijing. At tinawag ito na Forbidden City kasi most people were not allowed to enter. Kahit yung mga government officials and member ng imperial family is limited access lang. And while yung mga emperor is could go anywhere. So, the second one is temples and pagodas. So, religious structures like Buddhist temples and pagodas features detailed ornamentation and vertical emphasis. So, yung pagodas, ito yung tall tower-like buildings na kung saan dito itinitira mga sacred relics. So, ang Shaolin Temples, isa siya sa famous Buddhist temples in China na nakalocate sa Mount Song in Henan Province. Ito yung example ng temples and pagodas. So, na-founded siya noong 495 century during the Northern Wei Dynasty para mapatira yung mga Indian monk Bodhidharma na nag-introduce kay Chan Buddhism or yung Zen Buddhism sa Japan. Then over time, sumikat siya, lumago, and naging important center siya para magturo ng Buddhism at meditation and martial arts. Then yung Shaolin Temple is nag-i-include siya ng the main hall, yung Mahabira Hall, na kung saan makikita yung Buddha statue, at yung Pagoda Forest, na kung saan dito nakatayo yung mga abbots and monks. Then yung martial arts training halls, na kung saan dito daw nagpa-practice ng Shaolin Kung Fu, at ang the Bodhidharma Cave, na kung saan pinaniniwalaan na dito nag-meditate si Bodhidharma ng 9 years. The third structures naman is ang residential compounds. Traditional homes like the Seheyuan or yung courtyard house is organized siya around an open space and house extended families. Dito nagpro-provide ng privacy, protection, and reflected Confucian family values. Usually composed to ng malaking courtyard na nakasenter sa tatlong gusali ng bahay. Actually, may pinapaniwalaan dito na mas malaking gusali sa bahay, mas mayaman at mas mataas ang social position. So, sa isang bahay may tatlong gusali. Tinatawag yun na first yard, second yard, at last yard. Sa first yard, dito, tinatawag ito na gatehouse, na kung saan nakatira ang servant and doorman. Yung second yard naman, dito yung tanggapan ng mga guests, or dito pinapaupo or pinapatira yung mga guests. Then last yard naman, ito yung private rooms ng mga may-ari. Last structures naman is tombs and mausoleums. Yung Chinese tombs architecture such as yung mausoleums of the first Qin Emperor, ito yung famous terracotta army, is binilt siya para i-honor yung mga dead and yung mga patay, and para ma-ensure yung status nila sa kabilang buhay. Yung mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang near Xi'an, ito yung tomb complex built for China's first emperor who unified the country. And ina-includes nito yung large burial mound and underground palace na pinaniwalaan na may contain mercury rivers and stair ceilings. Yung terracotta army, ito yung famous sa China na mausoleum. Ito yung madaming life-size clay soldiers, horse, and chariots na nakatayo para i-guard yung emperor sa kabilang buhay. Then, yung ancient Chinese architecture reflects the culture, artistic, philosophical, and practical values, emphasizing the balance, natural materials, and spiritual meaning. Ini-enjoy nito yung styles from wooden palaces to stone pagodas na kinukontinue yung influence modern city and ma-remain yung key part ng China's cultural identity.
Dako naman po tayo sa technology. So, during the technologically advanced, ancient China raw yung pinaka-most technologically advanced civilization in the ancient world. So, over 1,000 of years, yung mga Chinese is nakapag-develop sila ng mga innovative tools, machines, and processes na hindi lamang nakakatulong sa pag-improve ng pang-araw-araw na buhay, but also had a lasting impact, especially on science, engineering, and culture. So, these inventions reflect the creativity, practicality, and deep observational skills ng mga ancient Chinese thinkers and craftsmen. Meron din po tayong tinatawag na papermaking. So, papermaking was invented during the Han Dynasty around 105 CE by Kai Lun. So, malaking tulong ito noon dahil napadali nito yung pagsusulat at pag-aaral at pag-iingat ng mga records. Noon kasi bago magkaroon ng papel, yung mga tao is gumagamit muna sila ng mga bamboo strips o silk na mas mahirap at mas mahal gamitin. So, sa process naman, sa paggawa ng papel dati, yung mga tao is nangongolekta muna sila ng mga plant fibers tulad ng mulberry bark, hemp, pati mga lumang fishing nets at basahan. Pagkatapos, binababad at pinapakuluan nila to hanggang sa lumambot at matanggal yung mga dumi. Kapag malambot na, ginagawa nila, pinapalo or dinudurog yung mga fibers hanggang maging malapot na mixture or pulp. So, after nito, yung pulp ay ihahalo nila sa tubig, then sasalukin gamit yung bamboo screen or mold. Then, yung mga maiiwan na manipis na layer ng fibers, siya yung magiging wet sheet of paper. Pagkatapos, para matuyo ito or matanggal yung tubig, ginagawa nila is pinipiga or pinipress. Kadalasan, pinapatuyo na flat or nilalagay sa makinis na pader, mainit na bato or mga wooden boards sa ilalim ng araw. Para naman mas mataas yung quality ng paper, minsan pinapakinis pa ito gamit yung mga bato or shells para mas maging smooth ang surface. Then, pwede rin ito lagyan ng starch para yung tinta is hindi agad sumisipsip kapag sinusulatan. At last, yung magiging results niya is magiging light, flexible, at matibay yung paper na perfect para pagsulatan, pagpintahan at pag-record ng mga information. Printing technology. So, China raw yung unang nakadevelop ng printing technology. Ibig sabihin, nakahanap sila ng way para kopyahin or reproduce yung mga text at images ng mas mabilis kaysa sa mano-manong pagsusulat. Dahil noong Tang Dynasty, gumagamit sila ng block printing. Kumbaga dito, nag-uukit sila ng words at images sa kahoy, pagkatapos lalagyan ng ink at ipipress sa papel para makagawa ng maraming copies. Tas later on, noong Song Dynasty naman, may Chinese inventor na si Bi Sheng ang naka-invent ng movable type of printing. Ito yung two types of printing technology, yung wooden blocks and movable type of printing na i-discuss later. So, this innovation made books more accessible and helped spread knowledge throughout China. Wood block printing. So, wood block printing is an early and important Chinese invention used to reproduce text, images, and patterns by carving design into wooden blocks, inking them, and pressing them onto paper or cloth. Ito nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, kumbaga, ito yung unang printing method na ginagamit sa China, kung saan mag-uukit ka ng design or text sa kahoy, tas lalagyan mo ng ink, tas tsaka mo siya ididiin or ipipress sa papel or tela para lumabas yung print. So, parang tinatawag itong stamp. Ito rin yung naging foundation ng mga mas advanced na printing methods later on. Movable type of printing. Ito naman yung mas advanced na version ng printing. Na-invent ito ni Bi Sheng around 10,040 CE during the Song Dynasty. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Ang difference niya naman sa woodblock printing, yung woodblock printing, isang buong page mo siya uukitin sa kahoy. Kaya kapag nagkamali ka, uukitin mo ulit yung buong page. Sa movable type of printing naman, bawat character or letter ay hiwalay. Pwede silang pagpalit-palitin at gamitin ulit para gumawa ng ibang page. So, parang Scrabble letter na inayos para makabuo ng words at sentences. Ang advantage nito is mas flexible, mas efficient, and mas madaling gumawa ng maraming books. Pinakaunang tools na tumutulong sa mga tao para malaman kung saan ang direction nila, which is yung compass. Ito ay nagsimula sa China noong Warring States period, mga around 4th century BC pa. Noong una, hindi pa ito ginagamit sa paglalayag. Ginagamit mo na ito para sa geomancy at divination, lalo na sa feng shui. Ibig sabihin, ginagamit ang compass para malaman kung saan dapat ilagay o i-orient yung mga buildings para maging balance or harmonious sa nature at environment. Ang pinakaunang compass ay ginawa mula sa lodestone, isang uri ng bato na natural na may magnetism or magnetite. Dahil nga may magnetism ito, nakakatulong ito para magpakita ng direksyon. Pagdating ng Song Dynasty, nagsimula ng gamitin ang compass para sa marine navigation o paglalayag sa dagat. Dahil dito, mas naging madali para sa mga barko na maglayag sa open seas kahit mahamog o maulap. Kasi nga dati, ang parang ginagamit nilang bilang guide is yung mga stars. So, para kahit hindi nila makita yung mga stars, is madali na para sa kanila ang maglayag. Kaya ang Chinese compass ay hindi lang simpleng scientific invention, importante rin ito sa culture at strategy dahil malaking tulong ito sa navigation, exploration, at pag-unlad ng kanilang civilization. Naka-invent din ang China ng gunpowder noong Tang Dynasty around 9th century CE. According to history, na-discover ito ng mga Taoist alchemists habang naghahanap sila ng elixir of immortality o potion na magbibigay ng walang hanggang buhay. Hindi nila ina-expect na makakagawa sila ng isang substance na magiging napaka-powerful sa history. Ang gunpowder ay mixture siya ng charcoal, saltpeter, at sulfur, na kapag pinagsama, ang mga ito ay magkakaroon ng malakas na reaksyon na pwedeng magdulot ng pagsabog. Sa simula, hindi ito ginagamit sa mga war. Ginagamit ito as entertainment at religious ritual, lalo na sa fireworks tuwing celebration. Pinaniniwalaan din noon na ang ingay at liwanag ng fireworks ay nakakapagtaboy ng mga evil spirits. Kaya ginagamit ang gunpowder as signal flares para sa communication ng military. Pero kalaunan, na-realize ng mga tao na pwede rin ito gamitin as military weapons. Kaya nagkaroon ng mga fire arrows, bombs, granada, flamethrowers, mga cannons at mga early firearms na gumagamit ng gunpowder. Hanggang ngayon, malaki pa rin ang influence ng gunpowder sa buong mundo. Ginagamit pa rin ito sa mga military technology, pero bahagi na rin ito ng cultural traditions tulad ng fireworks sa mga festivals at celebrations. Yun lang, thank you.